The following is a paid program. The views and opinions expressed are those of the sponsor and do not necessarily reflect the views of Radio 1, WTLC AM 1310 The Light, and its management.
Welcome to the Home and Finance Show on AM 1310 The Light. Now it's time to get straight talk about financing a home and insider information about buying a home from the experts. And here they are, your hosts, Janis Bradley and Diana Rice-Wilkerson.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Home and Finance Show. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. We are your host. I'm Diana Rice-Wilkerson, and joining me is...
Good afternoon. I'm Janis Bradley with JB Real Estate Consultants.
As you know, when we bring guests on, we bring you the best of the best. And today we do have one of our best and also someone you've heard from in the past. That would be Amy Nelson, who is the Executive Director of the Fair Housing Center of Central Indiana. And she's going to be talking to us about what's happening when it comes to fair housing. We love Amy. She always has excellent information. She tells it like it is, and she just keeps it real. We appreciate you joining us this afternoon. If you're in the market to buy, build, sell, refinance a home, and you're not represented by anyone at this point, Janis and I would love for you to consider us. My name is Diana Rice-Wilkerson. I am the lender. I work for Fairway Mortgage. My number is 317-402-5555. And my partner, Janis Bradley.
I'm Janis Bradley again. I can help you with all of your real estate needs. My number is 317-590-7348. And we just want to take a minute. We're not going to mention a name by any means, but one of our radio listeners closed on their homes yesterday. And we just want to thank, again, the listening audience for all of the help and referrals that we get. But again, we'll have them on for testimonies in a few weeks. But again, we do appreciate all that you guys, the good words, the phone calls, just the encouragement. So we do appreciate you.
And we are very proud of you also because we know that, you know, buying a home is a big deal. Whether you're buying, building, whatever you're doing is a really big deal. And a lot of folks have fear around making that move because of the unknown. And so we just are proud of you for stepping out and just doing what you know is best for you and your family. As you know, this show is about educating you around those things, answering questions if you have questions or concerns. So you can call us at 239-1310, 317-239-1310. Now, you're going to get straight talk, and you're going to get it told like it should be. So 317-239-1310.
Yep.
Woo-hoo!
Well, that's... Well, I'm so glad because, you know, normally that's me, you guys, to get the numbers mixed up. Although I usually give my number out. Diana likes to give my number out also. You know, anyway, Diana, real quick, you know, just talk a little bit about what's trending. Market is still hot. Besides being heated, I guess that's not even helping things because you're showing hot homes in the hot weather. I made that up. Okay. But anyway, just kind of giving some information out of what's going on just this month alone. So condo listings, there have been there's 69 homes on the market presently, and their average days on the market is 8. Those that what we call active with contingency, this does mean that they have an offer on it. There's 37. And, well, let me go back to what's active. The average price is around $217,000. Pending listings, around 70 listings. This is condos. And they've presently been on the market for, that's about 40 days. But 69 also seems like around 70 homes have sold. These are condos. And the average days on the market is around 36. So what this actually means is the time frame it actually takes to close. Single family, active. Now, this is from July the 1st up until today. 684 in Marion County, 684 homes on the market. They're averaging around 204, averaging about 8 days on the market. Let's see, pending, we've got probably about 900, and sold approximately 700 that have closed average days on the market is like 47. So that's sharing with you what's really kind of going on. I mean, the homes, again, are going very quickly. Just want to talk to you about making sure in this climate, not just because the climate is hot outside, is also hot again with the market. But make sure you're working with a seasoned agent. Make sure you're pre-approved. Do understand that you're going to have to make your best offer 9 times out of 10 in the very beginning. Be prepared for a bidding war. Don't psych yourself out, just saying, okay, I don't want to be in this, because 9 times out of 10, most of the homes that you're going to be looking at, even if they're just hours on the market, you're going to end up having to maybe make your highest and best. So just listen to your agent. One of the things that I really hate to say this. I mean, I hate to say this because over the years, I've always been prided myself in being able to help your buyers get closing cost help. But you have to go with what's going on. So be prepared to have some money to work with for your own closing cost. You have to have, your offer has to be very, very, very clean.
When you say bidding, explain what you mean by bidding. Am I bidding against,
you are.
The bidding war, is it the seller, or what's going on in the market? Who am I bidding against?
You're bidding against other buyers.
Okay.
Yeah, you are bidding against other buyers. I would also caution you, before you go out on a listing, and your agent probably already does this, but, for instance, I'm showing homes this afternoon. Well, I've called every last agent before I'm showing, just to make sure there are no offers. And, I'm committed them to call me if there is one. I'm not afraid if there is one, because if we like it, we'll just offer right away. So don't delay. If you see what you like, don't delay. Go ahead and offer. Make your best offer. Make it as clean as possible. What does clean mean? Don't ask for a lot of things, Also, time frames. If you see that the home is occupied, help the seller out. Say, okay, I'm willing to give you 4 or 5 days to move. And that's kind of helpful, because anymore people have in their mind, I own the home, so I want it when I close.
Right.
Well, again, the seller normally might need a place to go. So all of that is contingent on this and contingent on that. It can be a snowball situation. So give some consideration to the seller. And of course, suppose something happens and the offer falls through, then your seller has moved.
Right.
So just kind of look at the big picture and how this can be, again, a win-win situation. Let's see. Be prepared maybe to bid over the list price. One of the things that I'm noticing, and let me just share that with you real quick, because we want to get to our guest, I know. But the appreciation level from my board, it's been for about a year, is showing the change in a year has appreciated almost 5%. So basically, the homes, that is a lot. So the homes have been appreciating. We haven't had really a lot of problems with appraisals. So have your agent do their homework and just see what the homes have sold for, and go from there. And again, if that house is in mint condition, it may appraise easily for another $1,500, because condition weighs a lot. If it has outside, like a deck, landscaping, things of this nature, these are added value, folks. So,
excellent info. Absolutely excellent info. Along the same lines, think about down payment, where you're going to get your down payment from. That could come from your checking, your savings. That could come from an investment account, a retirement account. It could come from a 401k, a 403b, I think, a gift from a relative. There's a variety of ways to get down payment. And if it's not for down payment, say you qualify for down payment assistance, so maybe you don't need down payment, but as Janis is saying, when it comes to closing costs and prepaids in the market today, you probably want to be prepared to either pay them or share significantly in covering them, just kind of be prepared. So when you go through that pre-approval process, you guys make sure you're asking every single question that you can come up with, because we as loan officers, we do this every day. And like anybody who does something every day, we will always cover the main topics. But sometimes, you may have another question, or you may have another thought, or you may have another idea. Someone asked me, hey, can I get money off my credit card for down payment. It all depends. If you start early enough in the year where that money is seasoned and nobody's tracking where the money came from, you possibly can.
Straight talk.
So, you possibly can. No, you can't get it from your credit card while you're going through the process. It's like, you're applying and you're saying, oh, I'm going to go over here and get an advance off my credit card. That will not work. However, if you start early enough in the process where we're not getting into those bank statements to find out where you got the money from, possibly. You could borrow an unsecured loan. Same thing. It's all about timing. It's all about you getting started early enough in the process.
So what's early enough, Diana?
I would say, well, you know what? I like a year or two out. Just so you have your you know what your credit looks like, you know what your income looks like, you have an idea, but sometimes we're getting 90 days notice. Hey, my lease is up in 90 days. I want to buy a house. That is cutting it tight, especially when it comes to the evaluation process, maybe putting you in the best position to get the best programs, so maybe if you want to use down payment assistance, your score might be 650. It needs to be 660. You've got 10 points. Well, 10 points might be attainable within 30, 45 days, but if you have 90 days when you have to get out, that's probably not leaving us enough time to comfortably get all of that accomplished. So I would say at a minimum 6 months, ideally 2 years. But I would say definitely you want to get started. Now, as I said again, I'm a loan officer. My name's Diana Rice-Wilkerson. You can apply at my website at www.loanswithdiana.com, www.loanswithdiana.com, and we can at least tell you where you stand, what you want to work on, so that you can get to the closing table.
Okay, and also, will you please go to us on Facebook?
Yeah, check us out on Facebook, guys, which is
Home and FinancesShow.com.
Yes, and also
like us, they say, huh?
And our website is the same, right?
Yeah, www.
You guys can see we're struggling with this, but we're going to get
Show.com. We're told what to say. We have these little cue cards here, but now we don't. Neither one of us have our glasses on, so we're doing the best we can. But you guys know how to reach us. That's for sure.
Phone numbers, absolutely. One thing I want to just talk about real quickly before we go to our guest, and that is a first-time home buyer benefit that probably is one of the best kept secrets in the whole wide world. Okay, it is called the Mortgage Credit Certificate. We refer to it as the MCC. What I love about this program is you're not getting money at closing. You're not getting down payment assistance. But what you are getting is the way I'm going to explain it to you, which I think the average person would understand, is you're getting a rebate on the mortgage interest that you pay on your mortgage for the life of the loan. So, for example, if your mortgage interest for year one is $5,000 and your mortgage amount was over $90,000, then you're going to get $1,000 back from Uncle Sam. Now, the nice part about this is this goes on every year for the life of the loan. So that is significant. And for a lot of people, their mortgage interest is $7,000 and $8,000 a year, and so that's a significant amount of money that you're getting back. It normally, from what I can gather, it normally is somewhere between $10,000 to $15,000 or more, just depending on how long you live in the house. You can qualify for this benefit as long as your household income falls within a certain range. So, for example, a household of 1 or 2 is around $70,000. A household of 3 or more is around $80,000. Your lender must participate in the program. This is a state program. You can only get it when you are actually going through the loan process. You may not be offered it. You will need to ask about it, but it is definitely worth asking about. So you're taking maybe an interest rate of 5%, and by the time you get this rebate, applied, you may be more in the 4% range or possibly in the 3% range. That's your effective rate. So ask about this program because, it is one of the best kept secrets, and it is hardcore cash. If you want to know more about that program, call me at 317-402-5555.
I don't know why she's saying rebate. Now, we like to hear refund.
Okay. It's really a tax credit, but people, you don't want to get into the techno jargon. I mean, it's kind of like
that's why we refund. I want this. I am getting this money.
Yes.
They understand that.
Yes.
We claim straight talk. you know.
And you're going to get this money no matter what. I mean, this is not about
But Diana made a comment that you have to ask for it. As long as you're working with Diana, you never have to ask for it. You're going to get this rebate, whether you like it or not. Let's get on with our guest.
All righty then.
Okay. Well, we have, again, as we shared with you, Amy Nelson. Amy has come in our lives, and we're so thankful. I'm telling you, she's... you know how people say they're an encyclopedia? Well, that's her. I mean, what the numbers that she can rattle off, you know, about anything dealing with fair housing, she just loves it. You just have to understand how much she loves it and the sincerity. I mean, it's her passion. Amy, talk a little bit about yourself. Welcome, Miss Fair Housing Lady.
Thank you so much for having me again. We're excited to talk about a number of different things. It's a busy time of the year. It's typically busy this time of year because a lot of people are moving. They're changing housing, so sometimes they will run into problems as they're doing it. Mm-hmm. There's also great experiences becoming potentially first-time home buyers or moving to a upgraded home, whatever that might be. But things are definitely a lot busier than they've been in previous years, and for our line of work, that can sometimes be a bad thing because it means more people may be being impacted or being harmed.
Sloppy?
Well, no, I don't know so much about the sloppy, but we definitely are noticing, some concerns. We had that time post-foreclosure crisis when credit had tightened up so much, mm-hmm. and people weren't getting loans. And then we started seeing some racial disparity in who were getting loans, and despite credit score. So then we started seeing that problem again post-foreclosure crisis. And then now, I'm starting to get a little bit nervous about some of the products that are reemerging and who those products are being offered to. And then we've seen redlining start to reemerge, certainly a little bit. There's been some Department of Justice cases that have been filed, as well as some other cases, in that particular area. So some of those old things are coming back. We've had, your listeners may have read about, is the reemergence of rent-to-own and land trust contracts, something that historically was a really bad product for neighborhoods of color. We've certainly seen those roaring back, not just in our city, but in a number of urban centers. We've seen that. There's a stat I read that in Detroit in 2016, they had more rent-to-own land contracts being done than traditional mortgages.
Wow.
So those type of things emerging, and we just need to make sure people are educated about that product so that they know the risk going in. And then if they go into it, so be it. But I think that we just need to probably bring some of those old training tools back and just remind some folks of things to look at. And then groups like mine need to be doing more work to make sure that discrimination isn't impacting the product you're being offered or the house or the rental you might be shown.
Part of me wants to think that we still want to be told yes when we are trying to buy a home. We want to be told yes, and those products, those predatory types of products, are designed to say yes to us. The rent-to-own contracts, a straight contract. I mean, we're hearing, well, you can buy this house, you just need this amount down, and this is your monthly payment. Not realizing the traps. And also, I just had this happen probably 2 weeks ago where a realtor said, "Hey, Diana, my customer's looking at going into a contract, and sorry, my phone is going off. And I want to know, is she going to be able to actually get a mortgage in a year? Mm-hmm. So will you please call her and evaluate her?" Which I did, and sure enough, she could get a mortgage now. There was no reason for her to be going into a contract, which is the information that I shared. Right. And so now she's getting a mortgage now.
And you know what, Diana?
What?
You and I came up with a slogan this week.
You did.
So anyway, so with that, what you're sharing is that this is our slogan, you guys. The more you know, the more you can control.
That's right.
Yes. You like that?
I do like that.
Okay, all right. Don't steal it now. That comes from us, the Home and Finance. That's a very good point that you had. Besides the land contracts and rent-to-own, what other type products are you seeing coming into the market?
I had mentioned that we've had some concerns about redlining. Mm-hmm. So that's where For those who aren't aware of the term, we could go back to the 1930s, and the government basically sanctioned it by actually drawing red lines around certain neighborhoods and scoring them based upon a number of factors, but one of those factors was whether or not African Americans happened to live in those neighborhoods. And those same neighborhoods, if you put that map against it, are the same neighborhoods that for so long have suffered from disinvestment. And we at my organization are definitely having concerns that we're seeing those red lines reemerging again as well. I'll give you a product, but it's not going to be the same product that I offer in the white neighborhood or that I offer to the white consumer who comes in my door because my branch is located in a white neighborhood. So that's been something that's been reemerging. The Department of Justice hadn't filed any redlining cases for about 15, 20 years until about 3 years ago. And then
are we talking here in Indianapolis?
Including here in Indianapolis. Yeah. We had a case last year that was filed alleging redlining that was wrapped up and settled with the Department of Justice. So that is certainly, coming back. Can I
comment on that? Just from a lender's perspective, and this is certainly not to defend, but this is to explain. What's happening, or one of the things banks are challenged with, are lending in certain neighborhoods. And so what happens is, I don't think buyers are given. So sometimes a buyer may go through a program, and instead of being given multiple options, they may be given this one option. It's like, you can buy in this neighborhood. We will make a loan in this neighborhood. As long as we will make you a loan as long as you're buying in this neighborhood. Well, it's really more all about the bank. This is my opinion, than the borrower, because that property may not even meet that borrower's needs. It's right. It's the bank or that lending institution trying to show that they have lent money in this neighborhood that is considered low mod or whatever.
Okay.
What the problem is with that, I don't think the buyer many times gets their I've had buyers call me and say, hey, I'm going through this program, but they're telling me all I can do is this.
Yeah, and these zip codes.
And yes, but then they qualify again for FHA, a regular mortgage. I think the problem from where I'm seeing, and I hear what you're saying, Amy, the buyers are not being given all their options. It's like, here's option A, B, C, D, and then that way I'm not being steered. But if all I'm being told is, hey, we can make you a loan, and it's only if you buy in this neighborhood, that definitely, to me, could be a big problem.
Well, and we have a testing program where we have people pose as prospective home seekers across rental, insurance, lending, and we have certainly seen the exact same agent treat an African-American home seeker differently than the white home seeker on just the products that were offered, time spent with that individual, a referral to a real estate agent versus being told to the African-American tester, well, you really should get an agent. White tester gets told the name of an agent.
Yeah.
And
different.
Customer service, walking them through products versus being given just a sheet with the product information on it. All of that has an impact, as well. And I understand agents are busy, but unfortunately, race and color still are having an impact. And that's unfair because we say money's green, but we're certainly seeing that in our line of work, that's still having an impact. And I think there was a report released, I want to say, last week or the week after that African-American home buying is at its lowest. The gap between white and African-American home buyers is the largest it's been since they kept track in the 1940s. That disparity between the two groups there, where, to just kind of read from this article, nationally, about 42.2% of blacks owned homes in 2016 compared to almost 72% of whites. And that gap is the biggest that it's been since 1940. So, and a lot of that is also coming out of the foreclosure crisis, where the predatory products that have been found now to have been discriminatory, neighborhoods of color were targeted with inferior products, and that rush of throwing around credit to everybody.
Right.
Those are the ones that lost their homes and had to restart and didn't necessarily have the history of equity built up because, a white home seeker, their parents likely may have owned a home where the African American home buyer, that may have been the first time in their family that they became a homeowner, and there was no historical wealth there that they could fall back on either when they went through foreclosure. And people need somewhere to live.
Yes.
And that's why, rent to own, I think, has reemerged, because all those folks who were foreclosed upon went into the rental market or had to find somewhere else. So the rental market is so hot as well. Rentals, affordability in rentals is a problem right now. And then you have folks who may have evictions on their record, may have bad credit, can't get into those traditional records where there are background checks done. And they got to live somewhere. And these rent-to-own deals are an opportunity for them to have a roof over the head. The problem is it's very often a house that has significant repair issues. The price has probably been marked up on you. It's probably not going to appraise for what you are paying for it if you are able to purchase it, down the road. So there's just those risks if that's something that you're looking at, and pursuing.
And don't stop disqualifying yourself from becoming a homeowner. I mean, I don't care what has happened in the past. Bankruptcy, foreclosures, you could have been a landlord with 50,000 properties and lost every last one of them. Home ownership is still possible for you. Veterans, it doesn't matter if you had a past foreclosure or not using your VA, or maybe you used your VA in the past. That does not mean that you cannot use your VA benefit again. It's just important that you get the information. It's important that you get educated and get the information. But I think the point that I love that Amy is making is, once again, the dark side of this business is, reemerging, and we don't want you to be a victim.
Exactly.
You don't have to be a victim.
And the time frame, whether it's a short sale, foreclosure, bankruptcy,
yes.
it's the time frame in between being able to qualify is so little. I mean, 3 years for short sale and foreclosure, just 3 years, and that's a blink.
Right.
Bankruptcy, two, unless it had a
real
a
estate,
home in it.
yes.
And so many people didn't realize. And again, I know this came up from the foreclosure situation, and those unfortunate situations. People got used to having their own, and they got used to living in a home.
Yes.
And this is what they wanted. So again, this was another way. But there's just ways that, again, just don't do it. I mean, especially not by yourself.
No.
I mean, because there are things that can possibly be put in place, to protect you. Especially, if it's a short time frame. I mean, you want to work with realtors that might have an attorney, a property management group. So there's just things that possibly, yes.
Yeah, you want the professionals there.
What people don't understand, especially on the lease purchase situation or, own to rent, again, the taxes, by the time you think you're getting ready to buy a house, those taxes have lost the homestead. And I know we're saying quite a few things you may or may not understand, but my goodness, those taxes can keep you from qualifying.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
That type of thing,
Yes.
So, again, so let's talk a little bit about, what to look for. And again, the listening audience, we have several types of listeners, whether it's renters or so on. But what's to look for discriminatory practices, and describe, again, is it seven?
You get a gold star.
Do I? Okay, great.
A plus.
Okay, A plus.
I won't make you name them, but you got the right number.
Okay, 7. Okay, I all right. 7 different ways.
Protected classes.
Protected classes. I was going to say that you can be discriminated. I think that's almost the same thing, but, go for it.
All right. So walking us back in April 1968, the Federal Fair Housing Act was passed, which at that time stated you cannot treat somebody differently in a housing-based transaction. That includes rental, lending, sales, zoning, insurance, if the reason was due to race, color, national origin, or religion. And in the 1970s, courtesy of the women's rights movement, gender was added in as an additional group. And then 1988, families with minor children and then persons with disabilities were added in as additional groups. And so that's where the law basically stands today. There has been some regulations, some guidance issued, but the law itself really hasn't changed that significantly since 1988. So that's what we're always looking for. Does this practice, is it meant to intentionally discriminate against one of those groups, or does it have what we call a disparate impact upon those groups that impacts their ability to obtain housing of their choice, free from discrimination? And then we also have concerns certainly around segregation, poverty, and issues such as that. Hate crimes that I think we'll have some time to talk about here at the end, talking about the effort we've launched around hate crimes as well and hate-based incidents that we certainly have seen escalating as well. So that's the basics on fair housing law. So what to look for, the blatant things can still happen. I'm not going to rent you because you have kids or because I'm concerned your wheelchair is going to do damage to the apartment. But it tends to be more subtle. So I always tell folks, trust your gut. If something just doesn't feel right, let us know, because you may be discriminated against with a smile. We've issued a few reports over the years. One of the reports we issued talked about a test where our African-American tester showed up at the property. It was the first time that the rental agent saw that he was African-American. He was given a key, told, go ahead and go look at the unit. This was a big complex here in town. He goes, looks at the unit, comes back. Agent says, he asked the agent, can I get information on the deposit, rent amount? And the agent says, please give me your email address. And he says, well, I really don't like giving out my email address. And she says, I am so sorry, but then I can't give you any information. So he left, not getting any information because he didn't give his email address. Not knowing that our white tester, who showed up just a short time later, is driven to the unit in the golf cart with the agent, sold on the amenities the entire time, comes back to the office, is never asked for an email address, and given a price sheet on 3 units. So you can't always see it.
Yeah.
But it may be happening. That's out there.
I love that when you say go with your gut then.
And we need testers. So let me just put that little plug out there. All races, colors, ages, with and without disabilities. You can go to fhcci.org and go to our jobs page, and that we have information on testing there.
I couldn't be a tester because I might have to choke somebody.
You might not be neutral enough.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I would just
we
have to
need
look
testers
at
who are unbiased.
Unbiased and not knowing, huh?
I just applaud you for the work that you're doing, Amy, you and your organization, because this is vital and critical information. As you said, people today may think none of that exists if it wasn't for your organization. And then explain about Indiana and the hate crime.
Sure.
I know it. That's amazing.
And just quick here. So the Fair Housing Center of Central Indiana, so we're a nonprofit advocacy organization. So we are working to try to stop housing-based discrimination. And when we find discrimination, we take the side of the victim to kind of help tip the scales a little bit, to make it easier for them to stand up for themselves or to fight the discrimination. And of course, we do education because we want to get the word out, things like today. And then we had what we called, we do public policy work in our Inclusive Communities program as well. Through our public policy work these last few years, we've been part of a coalition that's been trying to get a hate crime law passed. For those who don't know, Indiana is one of only 5 states in the country without a hate crime law. 5 states. The other states are Georgia, Arkansas, South Carolina, and Wyoming. And us.
Amazing.
5 states without a hate crime law. And there's been several attempts being led by some of the great legislators in town to try to get a hate crime law passed. It's made it through the Senate at different times and then has not proceeded any further to that. And over the past, certainly year and a half, we were seeing an escalation of hate-based crimes, which is where there's damage to property or person, and hate-based incidents, which the KKK flyering fishers, that's a hate-based incident. The KKK has a First Amendment right to flyer fishers. But we've seen things like that escalating as well. That has an impact upon that neighborhood and community through that flyering. So we applied for a grant because if hate happens in somebody's property, that typically can be covered under fair housing laws through civil action. If it happens anywhere else, then we need that hate crime law there, so to speak. And so we wrote a grant, and we're one of less than 100 grantees across the country. They received several thousand applications, and we were one of 98, I think it was. They received a grant, a 6-month grant, to launch what we call the Central Indiana Alliance Against Hate, which would then bring a variety of organizations together to say, all together with a collaborative voice. We just are not going to tolerate this. And if this happens, the community is going to know that there is a broad-based support that's going to try to step in and try to counteract what may have occurred in this case. And then we're also, again, working on a hate crime law. And then we will have a conference as well on August 17th, where we have some phenomenal speakers. It'll be the inaugural Indiana Response to Hate Conference. There are some scholarships available for that. But we are excited. Hillary Shelton, one of the leaders of the NAACP for many years out of Washington, D.C., who's been talking about hate-based crimes and incidents, is going to be one of our speakers. Janine Bell from IU, who's done a couple books on hate in Indiana, and then speakers around disability issues. For those of us, disabilities are often mislabeled as abuse instead of a hate crime. And we need to fix that and get that fixed, as well as a number of other speakers, as well.
I have to just stop a minute, because I don't know. I know the listening audience doesn't know, because we didn't know that we didn't even have a fair housing center here in Indianapolis, Indiana. Correct?
Until we started up in 2011.
Into 2011. And I know you came from Ohio, and they have how many?
Well, I came from North Dakota, Virginia, and then I came here. I was brought in to start up this group, but Ohio has 9 groups, Michigan has 7, and Illinois has 6.
And we're just now getting 1.
And we just have 1. And our name is Central Indiana, so we technically cover Central Indiana. But we have had to go outside that area because it's hard to say to somebody, I can't help you just because you're in Jeffersonville.
Okay.
But our resources are limited. We don't get any extra money and we need, we got a lot of work to do in Central Indiana. But yeah, so we were starting from, a tough point, because some of these fair housing groups have been around 40, 50 years.
Yes.
And we just celebrate our 5th anniversary.
I was listening to the show before, which I always like to do before our show starts. And, they were just talking about Indianapolis and what it stands for. And again, especially because some of the our crime rate is so high. And so the thought process was the fact that, okay, Indianapolis is, a convention center. City.
Right.
So that obviously shows what we're all about. But see, isn't it interesting of what everybody's really looking at? You know what I'm saying? Because, we can't even get any fair housing organization here until 2011.
Yeah.
So, that's why we love doing this show. It's because we need to hear what's really going on right.
Yeah, for the 99%.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's what, we hear about what's happening for the 1%, but the 99%.
Yeah,
and you do accept donations, right?
Oh, yes. You can go to our webpage. We have a big donation button that we will take. We're a 501c3 charity. You can deduct taxes. But, we've seen this escalation, certainly of hate. We had the Muslim billboard that's up, in the southeast part of town. We've seen African-American churches. There was a church just last week that had the KKK spray painted on it.
Right.
We saw the Evansville church, oldest African-American church in Evansville, have sort of derogatory things on it. We saw some synagogues. We saw the JCC getting bomb threats. All of this is, it's sad. And I think that one of the things that we've been trying to do, and we've been fortunate, we have almost 50 organizations right now that have joined this alliance. We're trying to find more. If you represent a student organization, a religious group, a nonprofit, a business, and you want to say, we're not going to tolerate hate, we would love to have you join the alliance. And to just try to show the number of people to build basically this network, so to speak, to say that enough is enough. And we're never going to be able to get rid of hate.
Right.
But maybe we can make it easier for those who are targeted to know that they're not alone.
And how do they join the alliance?
So it's free, first of all, because this isn't about making money. This is about putting together collective voices. So it's free. You could just contact me, and my email address is anelson@fhcci.org, or again, just go to fhcci.org And under our programs link, you'll see the Central Indiana Alliance Against Hate. And we have information about how your organization become an alliance member. You basically sign a pledge that you're going to help us combat and address hate in the community. And that's really what it is, that you're signing on that we're going to try to address it, and we're going to keep working to try to get a hate crime law passed. But even if a hate crime law gets passed, that doesn't mean hate goes away. So we need to build this advocacy network there to provide assistance to victims in neighborhoods who are targeted. And
understand and know that's not going to be tolerated. I thought what was interesting in the Fair Housing Conference that came up, and I know, I'm not going to say this shouldn't be said because it was said at the conference, so, that's a lot of people there, but how the attitudes have changed, with the new presidency. I mean, so it is what it is, So, again, we can do something about that,
Right, so, you have the power. Question, yes. What's the difference between a crime being classified as a crime versus a hate crime?
So a hate-based crime is damage to property or person. So there's an actual crime that has to occur.
Okay.
So your car gets spray painted, your garage gets kicked in, you are harmed in some way. That makes it a hate-based crime. Hate-based incident is somebody yelling a slur at you. Not unlawful. Hurtful, but not unlawful. The KKK, as I mentioned before, sending flyers around in Fishers. Not unlawful. That's a free speech, basically, initiative there. But where we, as the Alliance, have stated is one thing we can do is we can use our own free speech and respond to that when that occurred to say, you know what, we don't support that. We want African Americans in that neighborhood to know that they're welcome there.
Yeah.
Those type of things, or whatever group was being targeted through whatever that hate-based speech or hate-based incident was. So again, a crime, there actually has to be a crime. So harm to person or property. Hate-based incident, it's typically a First Amendment expression, lawful, even though it's hateful, it's lawful in our country.
Got you. Very good explanation. Wow. What else can you say?
5 states. Let's just say that again. 5 states. Arkansas, Georgia, South Carolina, Wyoming, and us.
So what about petitions? Is that something that could be done by our city, to try to overturn that, to just get the hate crime reversed or
Well,
no longer?
we need to have a state law, and a lot of people bring up, well, we have a federal law, and we do. But not everything qualifies as a federal crime. That might happen to somebody. So that's why we need to have a state law as well. And also individuals will like it when somebody is investigating it that lives in our community and, has that authority within our community. So that's why we still need to have the state law there in place. The thing is, looking ahead to the legislative session will definitely be about making sure your senators and representatives hear that you want this finally dealt with. We, my friend David Sklar with the Jewish Resource Council, brings up, we want to add that byline that's in every story when something about hate happens in Indiana. Always at the bottom, it says Indiana remains one of only 5 states without hate crime law. That's in every single story because there just isn't the opportunity to have full justice brought when that occurs. So looking ahead to legislative session, it would be making sure that folks are ready to contact their senators, representatives, show up to testify, make phone calls, and to just make it known that we want to get this addressed. And then separately from that is, again, even if we're successful in getting a hate crime law passed, we still need the community to come together to try to tackle what's happening in our communities, in our neighborhoods, with people being targeted, whether because of sexual orientation, gender identity, due to gender. A report issued on Thursday, I think it was, that African American women's murder rates are one of the highest in the country, and women in general are more likely to be murdered by an intimate partner than anything else. So, gender, that's a form of gender-based hate.
Yes.
Let alone religious, that we've seen increases against our Jewish family and friends, as well as against Muslims. So there's been a lot of groups where these things that we kind of thought maybe we were making a difference in have unfortunately reemerged and kind of come out of the shadows.
Amy, let's talk a little bit about some of the changes in renting. I know we've had another show, and it just seems like there have been some maybe positive changes for renters, for all different kind of discrimination maybe that has taken place. I don't know if I can't think of right off the top of my head, but you probably know what I'm saying. Or I'm asking.
So we've seen, certainly some positive changes when it comes to for persons with disabilities, for instance,
Correct.
where housing is certainly being built that's more accessible than it was. But unfortunately, the housing units that was built prior to 1991 are not required to be accessible. So we have a lot of old stock that isn't accessible, and all of us are living longer with disabilities. We're obtaining disabilities later in life. Aging, certainly we hate those steps, no matter probably what age, we are. And so that's been a positive. We've seen that both in condo units as well as in apartments, and that's because of the Federal Fair Housing Act being amended in 1988 to make that a requirement there. We've seen, some positive things when it comes to families with children. We don't see near probably the levels of discrimination there that we saw, when I first got into fair housing in the mid to late 1990s. We saw a lot more familial status discrimination. I think that has kind of gone away, but one of the problems, though, is when it comes to rentals. There certainly has been a targeting of 1 and 2 bedrooms. So if you've got 3 kids, 4 kids, you're going to struggle there, particularly if they impose what we call 2-person per head standards, which I always tell housing providers, landlords, you got to look at square footage rather than doing per head. We're building things a lot bigger than we did. I think most of us grew up in homes that are smaller than we live in.
Right.
And to always look at square footage, because families with children can lose out in that respect. We thought we were making some religious headway, but the last year and a half has shown us that we've still got a long way to go, in that respect when it comes to housing discrimination, certainly as well.
There were 8 of us. I mean, there were 6 kids. So I remember the difficulty that we had when I was growing up on finding a place to rent. Yes, because, 6 kids. Nobody was trying to have us in their house, right?
Right.
I mean, they could see their walls destroyed and everything else.
Absolutely.
Well, my dad was a paper hanger painter, so, and actually anyone who ever came in our house would never imagine, and they would often say, I can't believe you have 6 kids. But I lived through that. I completely remember that. And then finally, my parents bought a home, but that was certainly almost more into my adult years when they bought a home. Dad had his VA benefit, but didn't understand how it worked, the whole entire bit. So when you mention the dates, I'm just thinking how real recent a lot of these improvements or laws even to improve things have even come into play. Before that, it was like
women could be denied housing until 1974.
And I remember that.
Not that long ago.
Now, I tell you what, I remember working at the telephone company in the 60s, 70s. And one of my supervisor had bought a home, was trying to get a home. And I could remember her having issues and some, and she was not black. And I couldn't believe it. It just never even, this part of you just says, what does this have to do about anything? But yeah, it took her a long time to, I guess she had to fight or whatever, and I don't know. But yeah, and that was in the 60s.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And we 60s, would ask questions about childbearing. And
yes.
We did all of that.
I was an employment counselor at the telephone company, and you actually had to ask them, some very personal questions. Of course, I cheated, so.
Well, I tell you what, today, I know every year, as a loan officer, every year, we have to take so many classes around this very thing we're talking about. And I do remember a couple of situations. One comes to mind pretty quickly where a loan officer was doing what Amy's described is, for the person of color, they got a very short spiel, so to speak, about mortgage finance and what they qualified for. Some of their questions some of the questioning was just over the top. And then for the white client, they got a completely different, more, you could clearly tell in the questioning and the just the way it was handled, there was more of a concern that I really want to help you. I really want to get you into a house. Even to the standpoint of credit. One of them was about credit. So I pull your credit report and your score is like 610. Let's say we need 620. I say, Janis, I'm sorry, your credit score does not meet our guidelines.
Right,
I'm sorry.
And we're done.
Right. And then I pull Amy's, hers is 610. It's like, Amy, you know what, all you need to do is pay down your credit card. You know, if you are conducting business that way, you know, where you're treating one class of people one way and another class another way, whatever your thought process is around it is completely discriminatory. And you will get yourself and your company in trouble.
Amy, has there been any changes for evictions for people? Not evictions, incarceration when people come, are coming out of the.
Yeah, so there was guidance issued last April under President Obama's administration when it comes to criminal history and how that can be used in rental housing. And the guidance basically has said, and so far the current administration to date has not challenged that yet. Has not notified us of their intent to rescind it or to change it. But what the guidance that was issued last year said is that really housing providers should, or landlords should individually assess a person's ability to be provided with a rental if they have criminal history. They should not take into have blanket arrest bans, because we know the data just isn't fair when it comes to arrests. So if somebody actually hasn't been convicted, you really shouldn't even be looking at arrests. And then what the guidance said is, and I should back up and say that HUD doesn't feel that there's going to be able to be shown to be a business necessity reason for considering arrests. Then looking at criminal history, how long ago was the crime?
Right.
What was the type of crime? Those likelihoods to potentially reoffend, because, again, that's a segment of the population that needs access to housing. Recidivism rates are dramatic if they don't have access to housing and then a job in doing that. Safe place that they can go, to live in doing that. And, if you have something that is a blanket ban, no criminal history allowed, even if it was 20 years ago and this person hasn't done anything, that's probably something that a group like mine may be able to challenge if we have the right situation and right demographics to prove that that policy may disproportionately impact men, may disproportionately impact persons with disabilities or persons of color or national origin potentially. Each will have to be looked at case-by-case basis, but the guidance made clear that really you should be looking at individually assessing somebody rather than having blanket bans.
Along the same lines, when you're if a person has been incarcerated and they're looking to buy a home, we are strictly looking at income, credit,
ability to pay,
and ability to pay. Let's say you were employed and you worked a job, and then something happened and you were incarcerated, and now you're out.
Right.
And let's say you've been on your current job 6 months.
Right.
Okay. As far as we're going to look at income, credit, debt ratio, and the issue with your employment, as long as you can prove that you have worked at least 2 consecutive years prior to being incarcerated, then we're good. So it's not one of those things where, the fact that you've been incarcerated comes into play at all when it comes to a mortgage. And so, for a lot of people, they, again, may sign rent to own or, land contracts
because of the assumption of
the assumption. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so good information.
It is. It really is. How much time do we have? 2 minutes. What can be done in 2 minutes? Well, I guess what we can just do is just encourage our listening audience. And first of all, let's just give Amy a big applause. And just the very fact of her, again, determination, passion. You know what, guys? We are so blessed to have her in our city.
Absolutely.
In our state.
Yep.
We really are.
Ministry work.
Exactly. Again,
yes.
Once again.
Yes.
But anyway, for those of you who are thinking about trying to buy a home, not trying, but would like to begin to buy a home, you may reach Diana. Now, Diana, your number, remember, she's the one that shows you the money. And her number?
My number is 317-402-5555. My website is loanswithdiana. That's DIANA.com.
And I'm Janis Bradley with JB Real Estate Consultants. I can handle, we would say new construction for sale by owners. If you're presently living in a home and you're renting, I can help you put that purchase agreement together so that you can get your financing through Diana, we're hoping. And just love what we do. And again, if you're thinking about doing it, try to do it now while this market is as hot as it is.
Yes.
And just don't get discouraged because, where there's a will, there's a way. And quite frankly, I'm just going to, before we end, again, my number is 317-590-7348. That's 317-590-7348. Diana and I have been called, since we're such a team, all kind of different little sayings, I guess. But now, the last time we heard, we were called Batman and Robin. So when you call us, don't worry about Diana or Janis. Just say, is this Batman or Robin? It's not gonna matter. We're gonna get you
Wonder
there.
Women?
Yeah, Wonder Women. Well, but you have to consider the source that it came from. Enjoy your weekend.
Well, we want to hear from Amy first.
Okay,
Yes,
her number. Thank you.
Website.
Visit fhcci.org. Please consider coming to our August 17th conference at phone number 317-644-0673. Thank you very much, ladies.
Thank you.
Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Home and Finance with your hosts, Diana Rice-Wilkerson and Janis Bradley. For more straight talk about financing a home and insider information about buying a home, listen next Saturday at 1 p.m. or call 402-5555. That's 402-5555.
The proceeding was a paid program.